This is AndyTube, and I'm back working on this Singer Model 338. After completing all the cleaning and reassembly, where I found I had a bad needle bar and a needle bar connecting stud, and I replaced those and everything is okay there. And I went through and I did all of my factory adjustments on the needle thread tension unit and the bobbin tension, zigzag width, stitch length, so forth. Most of them were okay. Some needed to be tweaked, and I did a straight stitch and a zigzag stitch test similar to the one I performed before I did the restoration, and they came out really nice. Especially the zigzag stitching improved a lot. Where before the stitches were kind of rounded off at the end, now they're nice and sharp and pointed. So it just shows what a good cleaning can do. I have my tension set properly now, so when I do a top stitching or zigzag, I don't get any bobbin thread being pulled up to the top, and I don't get any top thread being pulled down on the bottom side. So I'm happy with all of that. And what I've done now is I've set up the machine for double needle sewing because I want to test that. And I have a yellow and black thread on the top threads up here on the twin spool pins. I have two number 14 sharp point needles installed, and I have a white bobbin thread. So I use 3 different threads so I can see how well the stitch balance is and so forth. So I'm going to start out with just twin needle straight stitching, and when you twin needle sew straight, you can have the needle in the needle bar in center position or left position, and I usually put it in left. And then your stitch width, of course, is 0, and I have found that the upper tension, like this machine runs at about 4. I might lower it down to about 3 for twin needle, because even though there's 2 upper threads, there's still only 1 bobbin thread. And on the bottom of the stitch, you'll see that it kind of looks like a zigzag stitch. So I want just a little bit less tension. I found gives me the best balance. Every machine's a little different. So let me set up here for this and see if I can. The material that I've been using is some leftover upholstery material. It's what I call medium to heavy weight. It's a cotton polyester blend, and I'm just going to go down here and get started, and I'm going to run double needle straight stitch at about the recommended length of between 12 and 15 stitches per inch. And we'll bring this up and take a look at it. It looks really good on the top. The yellow stitching is probably going to show up a little better in here, but it's a nice straight uniform stitch. The double needle stitching is used a lot for top stitching. Some men's clothes, like shirts, when you want stronger seams, but it really looks good on the top stitching. And then on the back side, you'll see the white bobbin thread is more zigzaggy because it has to wrap around both of the top threads. But that's a real nice balanced stitch here. So I would say that the double needle straight stitch settings and tension look very good. So I'm going to move on to the zigzag stitching test here, and I'm going to lower my upper thread tension just a little bit more. Anytime I'm doing zigzag versus straight stitch, I want to have a little less tension, and maybe even more so because I have double needles. Now in the zigzag double needle settings, you can only use the needle in the left position. The needle bar has to be to the left because of the way it zigzags, of course. And if you use center or of course right, that right needle is just going to smash into your presser foot. And for width, you can go between 0 and 2.5 for the width. If you go any wider than that, your right needle is going to hit that presser foot. So you can't go to 3 or 4, 0 to 2.5. And I usually go about 2. So I'm going to do a width of 2 on double needle, and I think I'll just leave the, well, maybe so we can see the stitch better, maybe I'll drop it down to between 10 and 12 stitches per inch, maybe a little bit wider stitch here. So I've lessened up my needle tension a little bit. Width 2, needle position left, and stitch length about 10. Alright, it looks great. We can, nice crisp points on the zigzag, unlike the rounded points of the test I did before cleaning the machine. And we'll look at the back. That's a very typical pattern for double needle stitching. Kind of a zigzag pattern on the bottom too. And I see just a couple of places here where my black top thread came down. So I may have made the upper tension a little too light. And that's why it's pulled down some of the black. It's interesting to me it didn't pull down any of the, well, there's a couple. Yeah, there is a couple here. I don't know if they'll show, but where it pulled down the yellow also. So I'll increase the upper tension back. Let's see, where am I at here? 0, 1, 2. Let me go back up around 3. And I'm going to run that again, see if it makes a difference or if I need to do some tension adjustments. So on the second attempt with an upper needle tension a little bit higher, about 3 instead of 2.5, this bottom one is what we're looking at. And the top stitching looks the same. Let's see how the bottom stitching did. Yeah, I still got a couple of points here at the beginning of the stitch where it pulled down the black, but it's more balanced. So I think the setting that I made, about 5 or 10 grams of tension when set to 0, that's the factory recommended. It looks good, and tension can be tweaked based on needle size, thread size, fabric, etc. So I'm happy with that tension, and I'm happy with the stitching that this is doing. Let's see if I can make a little narrower stitch, because there's sometimes that you want that instead. Let's go down to 1 and run that through. Okay. This will be the top one up here. You can see it's it's more narrow, less wide, right? And the balance is good. One little spot that pulled down a black thread. I like that. So this machine has, you know, with the cleaning and some minor adjustments, is making a real pretty stitch. I want to make a lot longer stitch now to see how that looks. For you crafting people, you know, double needle and these fashion discs really provide almost unlimited possibilities for you if you want to get into special stitching and design stitching and pattern stitching. I'm going to take this down from about 10 to 6. This is the longest stitch I can make with this machine. Only 6 stitches per inch. There we go. Oops, let me get it up here. Maybe you can see it. So you see down here it was about 10 stitches per inch, and at the top 6. And you can satin stitch with this too, with double needles. You should really use the special purpose foot if you're going to do that. But let me try just a little bit of it. If the thread doesn't get up too high on the fabric, I think the fabric will still go under this multi-purpose foot, just for the heck of it. So I'm going to go back to 2 or a little over 2, and I'm going to go to a much shorter stitch, more like 20. It's really not completely into the satin stitch, but let's see if we can do it. Let me go up a little bit more, maybe 22. Okay, it's still going. I'm going to nudge it up a little. Whoops, I think that was too far. Yeah, it's kind of struggling now because I might as well keep going until it won't go under the foot, which is right there. Okay. See, if I had the special purpose foot on there, it could get under that presser foot. But the bottom of the multi-purpose foot is flat, so there's no place for the thread to go under the foot, and it just catches on the foot and breaks needles and so forth. But I guess I'll do it like this. Here you can see, so this is twin needle, double needle sewing with the yellow and black. And you can see I started out about 20 stitches per inch at a little over 2 width, and as I went along I kept going to a tighter and tighter and tighter stitch to where I'm approaching a satin stitch here on the end, and then it started catching on the presser foot because the thread actually overlays itself and starts to rise up out of the fabric. But with the special purpose foot, you can do double satin stitching with double needles. And Singer recommends a size 14 needle, but you can use less than that, and you can use, they say the best results are if both needles are the same size. But I played around and I've used 14 on the right, size 11 on the left, and I've used 11 on the right and a 9 on the left. And I used a 9 on the left and a 14 on the right, and I didn't get a very good stitch, so I quit. But you can use same color thread, different color threads, different size needles and threads. When both needles are the same size, I could sew a little quicker. When I had needles of different sizes in there and different size threads, I found my best results were to slow it down a little bit and kind of tweak the tension more. But I'm very happy with the results of the double needle stitching test on this restored Singer Model 338. So I hope you like that little video. And what I think I might do is do a little bit of double needle fashion disc testing, just to make sure that I've got those follower adjustments that follow along the different fashion disc or cams. So I hope you'll come back and see that in the future, or any of my other videos. Thanks for tuning in. Sorry, dry air. Come back and see me.